That's a very difficult thing to try and define talent.
It's like a unique ability to do something in a way that most people wouldn't be able to do or wouldn't be able to conceive.
From my perspective, I think it goes deeper than just musical ability.
People say, oh, gifted, like they were born with that. And like, I'm not sure how much I believe in that.
A person being engaged with what they're doing in a way that other people can understand.
Every artist I've ever met or worked with also always talks about how there is always a development process too.
I don't believe that talent often exists in isolation.
Visionaries, people who are going to take it to another level of leaving kind of legacy and changing the rule books.
People will sometimes define talent as whoever their artist is right now.
There are plenty of people who've been successful or talented in music who aren't necessarily musically talented.
Every artist will tell you they are one piece of a team.
If you're encouraged kind of from a young age and from a very artistic family, so both my parents were artists.
I grew up on pirate radio, so there was always that kind of guerrilla thing, like someone setting up something and going through all this hassle to get played. You know, they'll get stripped down by the police, and then a week later be back on. And you think, well, why are they going through this hassle for? What is happening like on the other side of that airwave, or what's happening in these clubs?
There was one moment actually where I realised that I could be a journalist in a club in Manchester where a woman called Mandy James, who at that time was like a bit of a role model for me, she just approached me in the toilets and said, "You're good, you could do this if you wanted to."
The industry's definition of talent has changed, and that affects me. A lot of kids are thinking of talent as visibility these days. There's a very visual element to it.
It's not a democratic system, and there's no like element of fairness. It's not about that. I'm not one of them kind of guys that like cry about fairness and this person's underrated, they should be like on television, and like what it is what it is.
Well, I think, to be honest with you, the kind of, you know, the machine is in place, and it's a pretty good machine. Music is so big now, it's so wildly big, that the machine can kind of, you know, take you to your one and only review on Pitchfork, or it can take you to the kind of, you know, millions of people seeing you on a Saturday night on X Factor.
With someone like Rihanna, has grown from an opening act to developing tours throughout North America and Europe, to the point where she's now headlining festivals like Wireless, and has obviously now gone onto a scale where Live Nation plays a role with her around the world in coordinating the live portion of her business.
If someone comes to you and says, here's a graph of our sales, we want the graph to go up, you can talk to them all you like about integrity, but the point is that, you know, economics affects the record industry in the same way as it affects all industries.
You can't make any money from music, we all know that, and which is shit, but people are still going to do it because they enjoy it, so I guess it's a good thing, because it's a good thing because you do it for the right reasons in a way, maybe.
Artists will sometimes be signed to labels because they're clearly understandable by the market, they make sense. It's not necessarily about talent. Talent and success, I think, are different things.
Everyone's always talking about the iTunes generation and the digital age and so on, but a lot of the people buying music are, you know, middle-aged, listen to it in your front room people, right? So a lot of the graph going up is about pitching it to a certain market.
There are many, many publications around the world. There are many spaces, likes, shares, views, etc., that are ways to measure it. Almost all of them are defined at the end of the day by fans and or consumers.
Because it is a mainstream show that reflects, it's sort of the biggest show on the network, we have to reflect a lot of tastes and interests of people, so we go for really big, recognisable names. They've built up a journey, they've had the specialist plays if they're a musician in Zayn or Pete Tong or Rob DeBank or whatever, and then Fern Cotton's given them a free play and a spin, and then they come through to us.
Based on an art installation that someone from Ladyfest did, she brought in her collection of Enemy music magazines between '89 and I think 2011, stacked them up in piles. One big huge pile, almost the size of her, was just men on the cover. A tiny pile, which was like represented less than 5%, were women on the cover. How are you supposed to emulate that? Or how are women, young women and girls coming up supposed to say, well, I can be that lead guitarist, I can be that drummer?
We kind of roll out the same authorities on talent. And more often than not, they're critics. People like producers, you know, artists themselves are who I would definitely kind of look to speak on talent. And also just, you know, fans, punters, really.
Radio and stuff, I guess you used to have your John Peel or whatever, but I don't know if anyone's really got completely free reign in a wide sort of, with a bit of wide publicity that can just sort of play what they want without any, you know, you have to play this playlist or you have to plug this band because you were getting paid to do it.
So we've got Shazam, we've got testing on records, like a track record of an artist. Sales as well. We meet various pluggers from record labels and they'll come in and say, right, this is the brand new single from whoever, and we'll play it, we'll listen to it, you know, a couple of minutes, maybe the full thing if there's time. Often they'll come in with a brand new talent to play us that we're unfamiliar with, and it is basically their sales pitch, you know, how they've started out, if it is the case of a band, how long they've been working at it, where they're based, where they've done their first gig, where you can see them live. All that kind of stuff is really important to build us a bigger picture of them as an artist and the reasons why, or perhaps why not, we shouldn't be representing them.
The amount of times I got stories turned down because the DJs weren't good looking enough. You know, people, and so the talent there didn't matter, the story or the kind of presentation mattered.
There are quite a few things that get in the way of developing or nurturing a talent, so people are often quite disadvantaged, whether they're from particular locations, backgrounds, their socioeconomic status, even ethnicity and stuff can play an awful powerful role in whether people have access to particular avenues of music.
You know, kids have parents and the parents might have wishes for them. They might be willing to spend money. You know, at the other end of the scale, if you don't have parents involved and you don't have the money behind it or the ambition for them, sometimes that results in more hunger and more independence and more self-definition.
I would argue that the artists who were coming through in the early days of grime had that attitude, you know, in the kind of early 2000s of just saying, all right, well, my PlayStation's like good for playing games on, but also if I get Music 2000, I can make beats on it as well. Most innovators, they'll tell you that more money equals less innovation.
Practiced in Camden, and it was a very creative place. We used to really like it there because there was just sort of crazy stuff all over the walls and lots of people to talk to and mingle. It's kind of how we started playing more and more gigs from a circuit in North London.
The intensity of being around, you know, 5 other talented musicians will make you better.
People can develop a talent through having an alternative kind of point of view.
Where I've seen talent change is an ongoing necessity to learn the new tools. As things evolve and the way we communicate in the world, the expectation and the need of talent continues to evolve along with them.
I think that, you know, interventions need not be very expensive. Basically, primary school education should include music. There should be just a music room with a set selection of instruments that people can pick up.
Yeah, I'd get rid of this competition on the TV. I can't really see any benefits from it.
Is it right that kind of X Factor people who sometimes actually aren't even that good are earning so much more money than this kid that I know in Camden who's making this amazing music? Well, no. One thing's very niche and one thing is very mass. And I think there's a kind of, you can cut talent around those kind of poles as well.
You know, I think labels get caught up in the kind of the competition between behemoths, between massive artists. And in the meantime, they're saying to young developing talent, yeah, sorry, like we've got to say bye-bye because we've had you on for 6 months and we've not got really, I'm not hearing a single. What you really need is kind of courageous A&R and some of the budget that's being devoted to major tours and videos and light shows. Some of that needs to be siphoned towards turning like children into performers and songwriters.